Welcome, fellow bookworms, to Tibra's Den. My name is Whitney, and we are reading Obsidian Butterfly by Laurell K. Hamilton. I've really been enjoying this book. We are about halfway through now. We just finished up chapters 17 through 32. And yeah, been really enjoying this. I can't wait to see how it plays out and ties all together. We're going to get into the discussion questions in just a moment. As always, before I do, I like to just catch everybody up, especially if you're new here, on everything that happens on this channel. So, of course, we do our Book of the Month discussions every Monday. We also have a weekly read we do every Wednesday where I just choose one of the books on my shelves. I read it and then give you my thoughts the next week. We also do a Throwback Thursday where we cover different childhood books, some of my favorites, and then eventually that will turn into a kids corner. And we also have a series Saturday, which we are currently making our way through the Dresden File series. We are finishing up book 5 this week and then jumping into the 6th book. So that's been a lot of fun. I just started a new series, which was this past Friday. This isn't going to be like a weekly series or anything like that, but videos will pop up here and there. And that is the ABC Author Challenge. You can go to my website if you're interested in that challenge to find all the rules and whatnot. But basically, I'm just using the alphabet to find new authors that I haven't read before. And there is a certain like thrifting element to it as well. So I go to the thrift stores and just look through what they have and try to find an author whose last name corresponds with whatever letter I'm looking for. There's also rules for like a book version and then an extreme edition. And so, like I said, if you're interested in that, there will be a link in the description below where you can head over to my website. And there's a link to the video as well. So I hope you'll check that out. And then bonus videos do pop up here and there. The introduction for the book of the month for December is about to come out soon. And so yeah, a lot happens on this channel. If you're not already, please do subscribe and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on a thing. Really would like to continue to grow this channel, and any support you can give me would certainly help me out. So as always on Monday, I do like to introduce the next weekly read. So if you're interested in participating as I read that, you have time to get a physical copy if you would like to. These books, a lot of them are older, so it's always worth it to check out your library. And if you don't mind not having a physical copy, you can check to see if it's available, like on Kindle or audiobook as well. Those are great ways to participate in the weekly reads. This week we just finished up Pure Joy by Danielle Still. My thoughts on this book will be out in Wednesday's video, but pretty cute, pretty enjoyable. And then we're going to start on Wednesday Brian Jacquez, The Angel's Command. I'm really excited for this one. I think I'm going to love it. It has pirates, it has a Labrador, so I'm really, really excited to read this one. And then next Wednesday, we are going to be reading Lost and Found by Jacqueline Sheehan. This is one I have read before, and I'm excited to revisit it. I kind of picked it because, Thanksgiving. I think this video might be, the video for my thoughts on this one might be up the day before Thanksgiving if I'm remembering right. But my dogs are so important to me and I'm so thankful for them. So I kind of wanted a dog theme book. And I'll go ahead and read the synopsis for you so you have an idea of what it's about. It says, Rocky's husband, Bob, was just 42 when she discovered him lying cold and lifeless on the bathroom floor, and Rocky's world changed forever. Quitting her job, chopping off all her hair, she leaves Massachusetts, reinventing her past and taking a job as animal control warden on Peaks Island, a tiny speck off the coast of Maine and a million miles away from everything she's lost. She leaves her career as a psychologist behind, only to find friendship with a woman whose brain misfires in the most wonderful way, and a young girl who is trying to disappear. Rocky, a quirky, fallible character, discovers the healing process to be agonizingly slow, but then she meets Lloyd. A large black Labrador retriever, Lloyd enters Rocky's world with a primitive arrow sticking out of his shoulder. And so begins a remarkable friendship between a wounded woman and a wounded, lovable beast. As the unraveling mystery of Lloyd's accident and missing owner leads Rocky to an archery instructor who draws her in even as she finds every reason to mistrust him. She discovers life-altering revelation that grief can be transformed and joy does exist in unexpected places. So I do remember enjoying this when I read it the first time, but I'm, like I said, really excited to revisit it. I love a good dog story. So, but yeah, there's links to all these books in the description below if you're interested in any of them, or like I said, you want to participate as I read it and then kind of get my thoughts after you've already read it and kind of have your own thoughts as well. But let's go ahead and get into the discussion questions for Obsidian Butterfly. As always, I do try to keep it spoiler light, but because we are discussing these chapters and these characters, there is a certain level of spoilers. So if you are reading it and you're not quite caught up, go ahead and jump off now and then revisit this video once you are caught up, or if you plan on reading it and don't want any sort of spoilers. Otherwise, like I said, I do keep it spoiler light, so go ahead and continue watching, and it might entice you to go ahead and pick up this book, which I hope you will. But let's go ahead and start with chapter 17. Olaf is proud of what he has done. Where is the line, and do the ends justify the means when working with someone like that? And so, obviously, all these characters, none of them are like squeaky clean or anything like that. I think the difference between them and Olaf is very boastful and proud of the things he has done. I mean, even Edward gets a certain thrill out of like killing and such, but he's not like boastful about it. It is what it is, and you know, at the end of the day, they're just doing what they need to do. Where Olaf is very proud and boastful. I don't think the ends always justify the means, but in this case, I really do think it does. One, because Olaf does have that insight, which we learn later exactly what it is, and I think that's an important insight for them to have. And two, it's keeping Olaf from doing what he would normally be doing. Edward, is kind of keeping tight control on him while they're working on this case. So it's actually doing some good because Olaf's not out there doing what he would normally do. He's on the case and he's focused on that. So in this case, I really do think the ends do justify the means. In 18, Anita and Bernardo compare ethnic struggles. What is worse, having to face prejudice all the time or being able to pass but never fitting in on either side? And I don't think there's really any comparison. They both have kind of unique struggles that go along with them. But if I was facing that and I had to choose, I would rather be in Bernardo's shoes than in Anita's, because Anita doesn't really fit in on either side. So she's just kind of in a limbo state, where with Bernardo, he has that culture, he has that heritage that he can connect to, and he also uses it to his advantage in some situations. Like, he can exploit that prejudice uh in certain instances. So like, if I had to choose between the two, I would rather be in Bernardo's shoes than Anita's, but really there's no comparison. I mean, between the two struggles, like, they both suck. So number 19, Anita explains why she is more afraid of Edward. Is someone without emotion more or less dangerous than someone who is ruled by emotion, in this case, anger? And I have brought up this question before when we were reading Stormfront as our book of the month and we were introduced to Johnny Marcone. And I personally think somebody without emotion is more dangerous because they kind of lack that humanity. And so there's no really reaching them. And you can't really exploit that humanity aspect of them. Like, even anger, you can kind of use that to your advantage. And because they're ruled by emotions, they're gonna make mistakes. Where somebody who doesn't have that emotion is just very cold and calculating, it's hard to trip them up. And so I think 100% they're always more dangerous than somebody who has a lot of emotion. And 20, Anita feels her physical reaction to Bernardo is due to her prolonged separation from Jean Claude and Richard. If this is the case, Would Edward's suggestion work? And I don't think so. Like, not in this case, because she's missing there's a certain like depth to the intimacy she has with Richard and Jean Claude. And so I think that's what she's really missing. So just a physical release would not do it for her. I think she needs that intimacy. So I don't think Edward's suggestion would work at all. And 21, Edward fantasizes about hunting Anita while she is armed. Why does this come across as a compliment to her? And I think it just shows how much respect he has for Anita. Like, he recognizes her strength. Like, he said, he would have no hesitation just killing Bernardo or Olaf outright because he knows without a doubt he can best them. No problem. He doesn't know that with Anita. There's not 100% that if they were to face off that he would win. There's a good chance that she would. So it just shows that respect he has for her, that he would want to face her in that way, because if he just killed her, he would always wonder that. It's kind of reminding me of like people who cheat in a competition. Like, yeah, you won, but that doesn't mean you're the best. And I think that's important for Edward, is not just the winning, but knowing he's the best. And so I think it is kind of a compliment to Anita that he isn't sure of that. So, and let's see, number 22, is changing her outfit really all that effective for going undercover, or is it a bit more about attitude and presence? So I think for Anita, like, it doesn't matter, what she changes her outfit in to. If she doesn't, change her attitude and kind of the presence she has, she's gonna be a dead giveaway no matter what she's wearing. And so I do think it's a bit more about attitude and just the presence she carries. I think the thing that threw, like, as we read forward, the thing that threw him off the most was she has that connection to Richard and that little piece of Richard inside her. And I think that's was a more effective cover than anything else. I don't think her outfit necessarily was a big deal changing it. Like, it helps for the surface, but she needed to do more work for it to be effective at all. So the scene on stage at Obsidian Butterfly is intense. In what ways were the people involved taken advantage of? And so we have the two girls who are drunk, and obviously they're taken advantage of because they were so drunk, like, they could not consent in any way. And so they were very vulnerable to the influence. It kind of makes me think of, sleeping with somebody who's that drunk. They cannot consent to that. They're way too drunk to consent. And it's the same situation. Like, they're too drunk. They're very vulnerable to the influence. That the guy has and everything like that. And then you have the other girl that was on there in addition to Anita, and she is very reserved. She doesn't want to participate. And so she was definitely taken advantage of because they used that mind, control trick. Anita calls it something different. I can't say it here, but they use that and, kind of force her. And you can see she was very traumatized by that when she kind of came back and realized what was going on. Like, extremely traumatized by that. And then you have the guy himself, not the one that was doing the influencing, but the other one that was part of the show, and he's being taken advantage of. Like, he does have a choice there, but he kind of chose the lesser of the two evils, and you can tell he's not enjoying, the contact or anything like that. And he's being taken advantage of, on a regular basis. And then Anita too, she was taken advantage of. It was hard for her because she was already trying to be undercover for Edward, and she wouldn't have gone up there at all. Like, she did not want to go, and they tell her, you won't have to do anything you don't want to do, just come up. And so she does, and then they still do the mind trick on her, and she has no choice but to play along, which, kind of escalates out of control because of that connection to Richard she has. And so it's just a whole mess. And so she was definitely taken advantage of, even though I don't think she would have seen it that way. But they told her, you won't have to do anything you don't want to do. And then she was kind of forced to, because they were using that mind influence on her. and she couldn't react the way she typically would have. And if she had been a normal human, that would have been taken, they would have been taking advantage of her anyway. So, and 24, people cheer for the sacrifice as graphic as it was. Shouldn't they have been more upset? And I definitely think they should have. I think at least somebody or several people in the crowd should have been upset. I figure you probably have, maybe three different camps. Those that don't believe it's real, like it's a complete show, which would make sense for them to cheer. But I would still think, maybe some of them would have been shocked about how graphic it was, even if they believe it's fake. Then you would have those who believe it's real, and they should have definitely been shocked. And then maybe you would have those that know it's real, but know, kind of the background of the guy being sacrificed. But even so, he's still being hurt and tortured. So they definitely should have been shocked at that aspect, even if they knew it was real and knew the background. They still should have been shocked at the pain and everything that he's having to endure, which Anita is. So, and let's see, number 25. In the case of the starving vampire from this chapter, would pity have stopped you? And this made me think of Lord of the Rings when Frodo and Gandalf are talking about Bilbo and how he felt pity for Gollum and he didn't kill him. And I think I definitely would have been the type to feel pity. Especially for like Gollum. And in this case, for the vampire, I don't know if like instinct to protect myself would take over or not, but probably not. I probably would have felt pity and ended up on the bad end of those teeth. And so yeah, I think that pity probably would have stopped me in both cases in this book and in the case of like Gollum and Lord of the Rings. But it's kind of an interesting question. And I've always kind of wondered about that, watching Lord of the Rings and such. And so I liked, that it played a part in this book as well, pity and even as dangerous as these creatures are, like you can pity them and feel bad for them. And 26, if you were in Anita's position, would you have intervened or even have been tempted to on behalf of Diego or Seth? And so for Seth, definitely. Like, I mean, again, he's just kind of a pawn. They're using him and he really doesn't have a choice. For Diego, I understand why they're so angry based on what we learned. I can understand that. And I don't know. I honestly don't know if I would have intervened. I think I would have intervened on behalf of myself just because I don't want to, be witness to that or any part of that. So I think if I did intervene or I was tempted to, it would be on behalf of myself, not necessarily for him. Although at the same time, it's like they're becoming the monsters. Like, yes, what he did was unacceptable and horrific, but at the same time, like by getting your revenge in the manner you are, you're just becoming the monster. But then they're vampires too, so it's like, I mean, what are you gonna do? But yeah, in my case, I think if I had intervened or been tempted to, it would have been for me, not necessarily for him. Where for Seth, I would have wanted to intervene on his behalf, if that makes sense. And 27, if Anita is as scared of Olaf as she says, why doesn't she tread more carefully? And I think it's really just the principle of the matter. She's not gonna walk around on eggshells and be careful just because she's a woman and Olaf has issues. And so I think it's just kind of the principle, and she's not gonna let him get away. Like she's gonna call him out just like she would anybody else. And so she recognizes that he is dangerous, but just because he is doesn't mean she's gonna compromise her morals and who she is to tread cautiously around him. So that's kind of what was my take on it. 28. What allowed Anita and Olaf to form an uneasy truce with each other? And I think there was a couple reasons. One, Anita admitted when she was wrong and apologized, which I think kind of earned her a little bit of respect. Um, I mean, a little bit, probably not much, but I think that helped for certain. And then I think the bigger thing was she kind of used logic, and she also used an example. Like, she compared him to Lieutenant Marks, who was just letting his hatred of everything she is take over at the detriment of the case and doing what needed to be done. And so she kind of used that to compare, Olaf's hatred of her, being that she is a woman, and also, like, what do you love more? Is your hatred of me so strong that you would let it take away from not only the case, but the enjoyment of maybe potentially killing something? And so she was able to kind of present it that way in a logical manner. And I think that's kind of what finally got through to him, that his hatred of her was, messing with everything else. And he kind of needed to make that choice, whether to focus on that or focus on the case and what can be achieved, by solving the case essentially. So, and 29, we learn Olaf's secret. How will this help the case? So, as disturbing as that is, I think it will really help because they have an insight, like a complete understanding, instead of just guessing at what how what's happening is achieved. They have an insight to that through Olaf, and so they're not having to just guess at it. They can know the answers for certain, and so I think that's really where his strength is going to come in, and he'll be able to tell them, the exact manner how this can be achieved and everything like that, which will help them in turn, know what they're looking for. So I think his insight, being that he does what he does, is going to be a very, very good help to them. And 30, arguably, Peter is too young to see the crime scene photos. So why did Edward allow it? And so I think, part of it, yes, he's only 14, but he has been through a lot, mainly with how his father died and everything like that, and his role in the family. So he has a certain maturity because of that. But I think the deeper reason that Edward allowed him to see those crime scene photos was he was testing him. He wanted to see what that boy was made of. And so I think that's the real reason that Edward did it, not because Peter does have a certain maturity to him, but just because he wanted to know what this boy was made of for sure, and just kind of see how he would react. So, 31, Anita is burnt out. Is her method of suppression an effective way to handle this? And it's not. I think it's a short term solution to a problem that's long term. And, suppression just works temporarily, but it's going to come back, way worse later on. And so I think, it's not very effective. She needs to kind of process it and acknowledge it and then figure out a way to work through it. Where just suppressing it and keep trudging on, it's going to come back to you. And it's going to be way worse later on. So, and the last question is number 32. We have talked about how Anita is going to be hindered by opposition. How is having an ally in the position of Howard going to help? And so she now has an FBI agent who she knows and she's worked with before, and that's going to help her a lot. Not only did it allow her to get back on the case and go to the newest crime scene, but even if, Marks blocks her in any other way, she's still going to be able to get the information she needs by having, that FBI agent there, and as an ally, it's going to allow her to get the information she needs, where before, she was completely locked out. Edward, Ted might have been able to get some information for her, but not as much. Like, they probably would have been cautious around Edward slash Ted, knowing, that he was the one that pulled Anita in and he would be sharing that information with Anita. So I think it helps a lot that she's got somebody on her side that's on the inside and is also in a position of power. Like, he can call the shots over Marks, but there is that other FBI agent who might be a problem as well. So I think it's going to help her a lot, and I'm really excited to see how it all works out. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on these set of chapters. If you agree with any of my answers or not. I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys here. This week we are going to be reading chapters 33 through 48, and you can find our discussion on those chapters next Monday. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.